Okay, so I recently had a project where I had to use an overlaid graphic on top of a bunch of files, and I wanted to batch process them in Photoshop. But when you use Save As option, it either doesn't serialize or it just saves over the same file over and over again. Now, you can do this with a script, but I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to pay for one. I didn't want to figure one out myself or make sure that one of them worked. Maybe something has some kind of script problem in it or whatever. Didn't want any of that. So I wanted to figure out how to do it myself, and I did figure out a way how to do this on the Macintosh. I don't know if there's an equivalent in Windows. So here is the file I have. These groups have all of these overlays that kind of give like a record album in its shrink wrap look to the images. And I tried to do it all from one Photoshop file, but that wouldn't work. So I had to prepare all my files in a layered Photoshop file. You'll see there's all these, and then I used the you won't see it when I pull it, but it's export layers to files. It's file export layers to files. So I use that to export these all out as flattened JPEG files in a folder. I then created my action. In this case, it opens, it selects all, copies, pastes it into this file, then saves. So I did save as a copy, but because of the way Photoshop works, if you just use it that way, it's going to save the file. If you batch it, it's just going to save the file over and over again at the same name. However, if you do the override save as, what it ends up doing is it ends up serializing the number over and over again with each save as. So you'll have 001, then 001002, 001, 002, 003, etc. If you've got a bunch of these, that file name is going to get real big, and it's also super dumb and annoying. But I just wanted to save it out. So here's how I did it. Let's see. If I go, so you're not seeing this because my screen is wide. Come here. Come here, mouse. There you are. If I go File, Automate, Batch, that opens up the window here. You'll see that in this case, let's see, I've got vignette selection selected. You got to select the action that you want. In my case, it's Save a Quare. It's supposed to say square. Save a Quare 3 2025. So go to Automate Batch. It brings it up, and then I'm going to override the Open command because I'm going to choose a folder. In this case, it's my Squares Intermediate folder. That's where I put all of my JPEG files that I save the layers out of. And then I'm going to override the Save Actions command. I'm going to choose a different folder than what I did before. So I'm up here, and I'm going to use this folder, Finals. Choose that. So now it's going to save everything there, but then I want to override the Save As commands. Now, when you do this, it's going to save as and keep adding that little bit of file name. So instead of serializing it, as I'd done before, instead, I'm just going to type in one character, in this case, A. Now, I want you to notice, if you look at the file name, I have Season 5, Episode 7, overlay -.psd. That -.psd isn't crucial, but for me, it's useful. And then it makes sure that if I want to select that entire set of text, I can just double click on it when I rename it. But I'm not going to hand rename this. I'm going to automatically rename it. So now I've got this all set up. It's going to do the same thing I don't like, but instead of having a bunch of serialized numbers, and I guess you could do this with those serialized numbers as well, it's just going to have those A's. It's going to make the file names shorter. This is going to be useful if you have more layers and therefore source files that you want to apply this to, then the OS will allow you to put characters in the file name. It's pretty long. I think was it 256 characters? If you're going to have more than that, then you may need to do this in more than one batch. But anyhow, so I'm going to click OK on that, and it's going to take a little bit. So wait for that to go. And then if I go into the OS and I hit here, you'll see the result. Now, this is not ideal. What it's doing is it's adding another A to each one of these. right? Doom, 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 doom. It's kind of annoying. But it goes through, does all this. I could count the A's and rename it manually, but that seems silly. It does turn out when you see the next step, if you did accidentally serialize these, it would work the exact same way. But this is more visually easy for me to understand. And again, if you had to manually do something with this because maybe your naming convention doesn't fit the rename patterns that are available in macOS, then doing it this way will make it easier to double click and just type or paste whatever you need to paste in there. My intention had been to rename these files and then rename them again, but then I discovered that there was an easier way. So it's almost done with what I originally was going to do. Let's look in here. Let's see, 59 items. Okay, so I think that's it. All right, so now what you end up with, by the way, is that the first one will just be nothing. I'm not entirely sure why that is. Maybe there's something that I did that caused it. Maybe you won't have that happen. But anyhow, I'm going to select all. I'm going to right-click and use rename. And now, under here, you may start off with replace text. That's sort of the default. But if we go to format and then name and counter, there's name and index and name and date, but name and counter is the one that I found worked for me. And then I go, for this, it would be what? We'll just call this export image dash, let's say. And then you can choose if the numbers are before or after, whatever you need. But you can see an example here, and then it's counters it with 5 counters. I don't think you can choose how many numbers that is. This is not as detailed as a Better Finder rename, and if you use that, you can do some other advanced things. But this is built into the modern macOS. So I go ahead and I hit rename on that, and now because of the number of A's that were in each one of those, and it would work again if you serialize them and it kept saving as with a longer and longer number. Now they're all numbered. So I've got 00001 to 00059, and I can do one quick rename again. So replace text, and I'll go 000 with just nothing. And because I know I have less than 100 things, so I rename those. And then it's nice and clean and done. And that is a non-script requiring way to, on the Mac OS, essentially save a copy of an image that you want to layer something on top of. And just so that you see that it actually worked, you can see here are all the little things that I wanted to have on there. And that included all of the overlays and transparencies and effects and whatever it is you wanted to layer on top of that image. So I hope that's helpful to you. It took me a while to figure this out, and I hadn't seen anybody else who'd done it without using a script. And sometimes scripts can be confusing too. So again, hope that was helpful, and thanks for watching.